Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Jump, and today I'm back with a new type of video. Today I'm here to discuss the Initial D first stage anime. I'm gonna be going over the overall plot, the characters, the battles that took place, and things of that nature. If I happen to miss anything, by all means let me know down below in the comment section. I'd really appreciate it. If you guys want to see my review / discussion of Initial D second stage, let me know down below in the comment section. Smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. If we can get this video to 20 likes, I will bring you guys the second stage review / discussion ASAP. But yeah, let's just get into the discussion. We out. So the Initial D first stage anime is not only an anime that centers around driving, but it also centers around character growth. And the best person / character to point towards in terms of character growth in this anime is our protagonist, Takumi Fujiwara. Takumi, when we first meet him, is a distant-minded teenager. Like, he's not entirely focused on the present. Some of his friends might even call him slow, like Itsuki. Takumi is this teenager in high school who's also working at this gas station as his part-time job. Well, one of his part-time jobs. As it turns out, during the early mornings, he's helping his dad deliver tofu in the Gunma region of Japan. Takumi's using his dad's old reliable Toyota 8886, I believe it's called. Takumi has been driving, as it turns out, this path or course, or rather the Gunma region, for years. I think he started around middle school and all the way up until like his high school years. Takumi led a rather simple life up until this fateful day, and that fateful day I'm referring to is when the Red Suns appeared in the Gunma region. The Red Suns being a driving team that is led by two brothers in particular, Ryosuke and Kisuke. Ryosuke being the older brother, a bit more cool-headed, tactical, overall smart guy, while Kisuke, not to say he's not intelligent, but he's just not up to par with Ryosuke in terms of intellect and strategy. But Kisuke does have it where it counts when it comes to having your pride as a racer, and I'll get to that later on in this video. At first, Takumi's friends, in particular Iketani, who's the leader of the Road Stars being the local driving team of the Gunma region. Once the Red Suns appeared, they became a bit frightful because Iketani didn't have anybody that was good enough to go against Kisuke, who was the challenger at the time. I believe Ryosuke was just holding out because he didn't think anybody was good enough at that point in time, but his opinion will soon change once things started going underway. Upon overhearing Iketani's problems, Takumi, as per normal, just went about his daily routine. I believe after a certain race, when Kisuke was going down the path of Gunma, that's when he encountered Takumi, because Takumi was coming back from a delivery or something like that. But that was Kisuke's first encounter with Takumi, and ever since then, Kisuke has been rather bit obsessed with re-encountering that driver because he was just blown away with how Takumi was driving. That was overall the main plots for episodes 1 and 2, I believe. Episodes 1 through 4 had amazing build-up. Like, it really built up the drama very well between Takumi and Kisuke. Because Kisuke didn't know who the driver was of that 86. He just said, hey, I know that they're around and I seen the car around this region. You have to know who it is, to like Iketani. And he says, yo, like, you gotta have that person pull up. Iketani at first didn't know that Takumi was the driver of the 86. Initially, Iketani and Itsuki was in disbelief that Takumi was this 86 driver, but they soon came to realize that that Takumi's actually the real deal. Takumi's first official race was against Kisuke, and against what everybody believed, Takumi actually beat Kisuke, one of the Red Sun members, and everybody was just like shocked and awe. Like, nobody expected the silent, distant-minded Takumi to actually be this nice of a driver behind the wheel. So after this point, things just escalated from there. So I'm going to talk about some of the characters that we were shown in Initial D first stage. As already discussed, our MC, our protagonist, Takumi Fujiwara. He's the 18-year-old distant-minded protagonist who at first wasn't interested in driving. He initially saw it as a chore because for him it was a chore because he had to assist his dad in making the deliveries for the tofu shop. So in him making these deliveries, he was also training in how to drive the Gunma region, or rather those particular roads. At first, Takumi doesn't see driving as important for his life, but after a discussion with Kisuke, upon Kisuke finding out that he wasn't going to accept the challenge, Kisuke had a discussion with Takumi saying, hey, if you actually drive that vehicle as nice as you do, then you can't look at me and say that you don't have a pride as a driver, because if someone calls you out saying that you're bad and you know that you're this good, then come out here and prove it. You know, show your worth. Initial D did I think a fantastic job in illustrating Takumi's growth as a character from when we first see him in episode 1 and then when we last see him in episode 24 after his last race. The next character I want to talk about is, and who I think the GOAT himself, Takumi's father, Bunta Fujiwara. We find out through subtle details that Bunta is actually or once was an ace driver of the Gunma region and potentially other regions of the area. Takumi's boss at the gas station can attest to this, saying that, hey, that your father's actually pretty nice and was pretty well involved in the driving scene of Japan. So, and anybody could help teach Takumi how to be a better driver, it would be his father. But we see that his father has a particular teaching style and he doesn't necessarily give Takumi the answers outright, and that he'd rather have his son go through a personal realization somewhat before helping him proceed to the next stage. No pun intended. The next character I want to talk about is Itsuki, who's Takumi's best friend, who's also the duologist of the series. Itsuki mostly provides comic relief throughout first stage. He has some plot lines here and there, one involving a girl, him getting the 8.5 by mistake when he actually intended to get the 8.6. But overall, Itsuki is, even though he doesn't have a lot of skill himself in driving, he does have a lot of pride to back it up, especially in Takumi. Whenever people start doubting Takumi and his driving skills, Itsuki 9 times out of 10 is there to speak up for Takumi when Takumi doesn't speak up for himself. Because even though Takumi does have a lot of skill, he doesn't necessarily tend to back it up most of the time himself. The next character I'm going to talk about is Iketani, who's the leader of the local Speed Stars and also Takumi's and Itsuki's co-worker slash friend. Overall, Iketani proves to be a decent racer. Over time, he does grow a lot of respect and admiration towards Takumi and his driving capabilities. Because whenever the Speed Stars can't deliver, you can expect Iketani to go to Takumi to ask for help. And Takumi's always there to help Iketani. So their friendship is pretty solid as we see throughout the show. We also see Iketani in his own little plot line, a little relationship involving Mako. Even though he did fumble that, I do want to mention that he did have that for a moment in first stage, so I will give him that. I also want to mention Kenji, who also provides comic relief and does help out Takumi whenever and however he can during his driving journey. Two characters that I definitely want to mention and who are pretty much the main antagonists for first stage are Ryosuke and Kisuke, the Takahashi brothers, and they are the co-leaders of the Red Suns. Kisuke is a Firebrand RX-7 driver and Takumi's first opponent that is of the professional driver level. Ryosuke being the older brother to Kisuke, he ultimately becomes Takumi's true rival in the driving world and potentially his most influential rival in terms of helping Takumi expand his worldview and where he can see opponents and where he can go to find more opponents. We also have Shingo and Nakazato, members of Night Kids. They are also opponents for Takumi in first stage. They help Takumi progress and become a better driver, mostly due to either their driving style or the type of car that they possess. We also have Mako and Sayuki of Impact Blue. They were there for a couple brief episodes. Mako served as Iketani's main love interest for first stage. I believe her friend also was a temporary love interest of one of our characters. I believe for Takumi. Overall, that friendship slash relationship fell flat due to mainly Iketani just ghosting Mako. So yeah. I also want to mention Mogi, who is the main love interest of Takumi in the first stage. We see how they start off initially as friends. However, Takumi did possess a bit of protectiveness over her, as you saw in a flashback where Takumi got into a fight with, I believe, upperclassmen over what he was saying about Mogi. Throughout first stage, we see Takumi receiving messages about Mogi and her activities, but we don't see that come into fruition until second stage. Throughout first stage, we saw a number of races between Takumi and some of the antagonists, maybe even some of the side characters themselves. We have the race against Takumi and Kisuke. We have the first one and the second one being the official one where Kisuke realizes that it's actually Takumi versus Shinjo of the Night Kids. That race was pretty crazy in itself because that race involved the duct tape rule, where they had to duct tape their hand onto the steering wheel and drive like that throughout the entire race. So that one was pretty difficult. We have Takumi versus Mako and her friend. That race was special due to the fact that Mako introduced the cat and mouse rules, where they had to chase each other and whoever passes the other person wins first. We also have Takumi versus Nakazato. That one was pretty crazy because Nakazato possessed a car that was a 4-wheel drive, which was pretty unique onto itself because all 4 wheels spun, which means that the car had a lot of power, and I think that might have been one of the more powerful cars that Takumi had to go against at that point in time. We also have the last minute race between Takumi versus Kenta. Kenta being the apprentice of Kisuke. This race is pretty crazy because most of the times we don't see our characters driving in hazardous weather, in this case a lot of rain. Kenta was claiming that the weather conditions actually better suited him and his tires. So he was urging that, hey, before Takumi gets to race Ryosuke, let him go against me. And that race actually happened where Takumi actually took the dub. And after that, we have the final race of the series, the most, I'd argue, the most anticipated race, that being Takumi versus Ryosuke. This one was pretty unique because Ryosuke actually sent Takumi an invitation and a rose saying that, hey, like, I invite you to a race at this location at this time, and we got to see like a little montage leading up to that date. It really showcased Ryosuke's character because he waited until he had enough data on Takumi to actually send out a challenge to him saying, hey, like, I'm ready to race you, let's do this, because Ryosuke was actually confident that Takumi was gonna win. But as it turns out, Takumi had an ace up his sleeve when it comes to racing down the Akina path. Yeah, after Ryosuke's defeat to Takumi, Ryosuke spoke to him saying, hey, like, you shouldn't just be satisfied with racing here in Gunma. You should take the time and actually explore the greater world out there and improve as a driver, which Takumi, I like to think, is actually doing. So I want to touch upon some subtle plot threads that first stage was hinting at that we didn't really get to. One of these things being the Mogi plot thread. As I mentioned before, Takumi throughout first stage was receiving messages via phone calls / notes in his locker saying that Mogi was engaging in these mysterious activities and he should keep an eye out. In the anime, we don't really know who it was that was warning Takumi, but in the manga, as it turns out, it was Mogi's friend. We didn't get to see that plot point conclude, I want to say, but currently I finished second stage, so I already know where Mogi is heading in terms of her storyline. But yeah, first stage was hinting at a plot thread of Mogi, and I do want to say that second stage does a very good job in handling her plot thread. Another subtle plot thread that we get to see in first stage is with Takumi's father, Bunta. As it turns out, he has a extensive past, or I like to think he has an extensive past in driving, and potentially not just with the 8.6 alone. he even has connections with professional drivers. After Ryosuke's loss to Takumi, Bunta received a phone call from a professional driver saying that he heard of Takumi and his career so far in the driving world and how he was admiring how he was following in his father's footsteps. Bunta, being the, I guess, laid-back casual dad, was like, oh yeah, he's doing fine, you know. But we saw a scene of Bunta driving the 8.6, right, after doing some modifications. We saw him driving the 8.6 and he was drifting without having his hands on the steering wheel. And I'm like, yo, after everything we've seen so far out of all the characters in the series in the first season so far, I'm like, you gotta give us a backstory on this guy. I'm being serious on that. Takumi's father, Bunta, deserves his own movie or his own season where we get to see what he went through, or just a portion of it. Like, that would be dope. Seeing a young Bunta just going throughout Japan with the 8.6, just going against opponents and stuff like that. That would be cool. That would be so dope. That's just wishful thinking so far. Comment section, if by a miracle, if I do happen to get that, then by all means, actually no, don't let me know. I want it to be a surprise. Like, let me know the watching order of how I gotta watch the movies and the show, but don't let me know if like, oh, this is like Takumi's father focus, whatever, or this is like focus on this character, because I'm pretty sure the movies don't only focus on Takumi, it focuses on other characters as well, I'm pretty sure. Please let that be a surprise, don't spoil me on that. So my conclusion of first stage is, at first I thought it was gonna be the average Saturday morning anime that you will see, but it went a lot deeper than I thought a driving anime would go, especially with the character growth. Like in Takumi, like he was such a reluctant driver at the very beginning, lost in space, lost in his own mind, not really in the present, to somebody who was like, nah, it's somebody who's out there challenging me on whether or not if I'm a good racer, then challenge accepted. Like, I'll race against them. We really see Takumi hone himself and his confidence just go up. Not saying that he was a wimp before, no, but he just wasn't very vocal and he just wasn't very sure of himself. But after that discussion with Kisuke, Takumi really grew into this person who's like, yo, like, I know who I am and I'm this badass driver of this 8.6 vehicle. Like, I know who I am, and seeing his character growth was really enjoyable. Honestly, it really was. And being someone who also watched second stage, very enjoyable as well. But I'm gonna save my thoughts for that review. If I'm being honest, Initial D First Stage is an anime that I would recommend to a friend. That being, it's only 24 episodes. The build-up is nice. It feels natural, and there's actually like delivery. When Takumi first pulled up against Kisuke before they raced the second time, their official time, right? It was a lot of hype. It was a lot of hype because they weren't expecting Takumi to actually pull up. He ended up putting up last minute, and everybody was just like in shock and awe, like, yo, he's actually here. He stepped out the car. Kisuke was like, yo, like, is this young ass dude? And Takumi's like just there staring back, like, yeah, like, it's me. Like that moment, yeah, moving forward, I like to think that those 4 episodes will be 4 episodes that I'll point to saying, hey, that's an example of good build-up. For me personally, that's what I think. That's my opinion. Yeah, overall, Initial D First Stage for a 24 episode anime that came out years ago, I'll still recommend to somebody today because it delivered. If you guys enjoyed my review / discussion of Initial D First Stage, let me know down below in the comment section. I'd really appreciate it. If you guys want to see my review / discussion of Initial D Second Stage, let me know down below in the comment section. Smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. If we can get this video to 20 likes, I will bring you guys the second stage review / discussion ASAP. But that's only if this video gets up to 20 likes. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Young nigga, I was dispatched by the colonies, not a man member. Iron fist like I'm Danny Rand, turn your declaration to a fan letter. Always on go while they playing checker. Cross the board, I just playing better. Go ahead, get the strap. Take a gamble, play your cards till it boy.